I know. It's been a while.
This channel is for mature audiences only. If you're underage on this channel, your parents' mom should have swallowed them or spit them out.
What's good? This is your boy Tico Tren on a live stream. Haven't done one in a long fucking time. Here with my homeboy Wen. Red
Hey,
on the
y'all
Wen.
know. Hey, take it
This
away,
live
Tico.
stream is pretty much going to be about you want to take it? You want to take the title? Because I think we pretty much both came up with that title because we didn't have the person that normally comes up with titles on us.
Right.
It's basically the psychology of sensory overload and sensory deprivation in relationships. And I was talking about this because I realized I realized that not all the time, even though because we talk about a lot of military shit. We sometimes we talk about how some of the military shit, especially when it's part of the Geneva Convention, applies to some of the shit in relationships. If you notice, like there's a lot of shit that women do to men that technically falls under the Geneva Convention. So
Right.
basically, by calling it this and sensory deprivation and sensory overload, basically talking about various things that people do to each other in relationships that's kind of fucked up by Geneva Convention laws, basically, once you think about it. Me and Wim were just talking on the phone and we were shooting this idea around, basically. So we decided to make a podcast about it because, one, I haven't done one in a while and I feel bad. And two, Win basically was about to do some shit, about to get himself into trouble on another podcast. So we decided to do this.
Right. I'm innocent. Right now. I'm innocent. I'm not guilty right now.
Hi, everybody in the comment section. I haven't really looked at the comment section yet, but apparently there's a holy smokes Tico. Oh, yeah, it is Tico. I know. I still upload videos every day, my guy. You can listen, drop in a listen. They're like shorts, basically, to let everybody know I'm still around. But this one I had to do because me and Wim been talking about this, and we always talk about different things in Geneva. That's a part of the Geneva Convention. Then we also tried to take it. Now we're trying to take it and apply it into relationships now, like with a lot of the shit that women do to men, and a lot of the stuff. Sometimes we as men, because I will admit that there's some shit that I've done in my past that I could do better, basically. And this channel's about
Self-improvement.
self-improvement, basically, and making myself a better human being. Unless the person is not fully there for you, then I would say, fuck that person, do it to the person, basically. But if the person is not really riding for you and they're basically acting like they're too good for you, basically, or they're too good to actually participate in a relationship, then I would say some of this stuff is actually reasonable. But at the end of the day, this is basically about some of the shit that women do to men that will fall under the Geneva Convention, basically. Then take it away.
Well, first we're gonna start out with sensory deprivation. Actually, we're gonna start out with the differences and who responds to which
Better, or
better.
in certain
Worse.
cases, basically. Worse, basically.
Men respond to sensory overload because it lowers our mental capacity to be able to concentrate because we have so much going on. AKA, you got the kids running around because they're undisciplined and you keep them in a house all the time. And you got your wife nagging your ear off as while you're doing something in the basement and in the garage and trying to fix something. That is sensory overload. Now, sensory deprivation is usually causes women to respond. AKA, you don't talk to her for a week. Now, this is kind of a middle ground. I just had to think about this. It's kind of a middle ground because both men and women respond to sensory deprivation. Like if you ghost a woman for a while, she's going to act like she's having a good time, but really she's pissed. You know, she's pissed. She's angry because you haven't talked to this person for a while and
Mm-hmm.
you won't pick up and answer her calls. Especially if she's attracted to you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She gets frustrated, she gets angry. Now, how men respond to sensory deprivation, it would have to be in an extreme case, such as prisoner of war scenario. Like, for example, the white room where the walls and the ceilings and the bed sheets and you're either stripped down naked or you're wearing a white uniform, and every time you get food, it's going to be on a white plate and it's going to be white rice
Or white food, or
or
potatoes,
white.
or
Exactly.
cauliflower, or everything's pretty much going to be white on your plate, basically, to fuck with your perception and your senses.
It messes with the perception of time. Sensory overload in a combat center setting would be waterboarding. Like you are you had a rag on your face and you're pouring water over all on your face. Something that I do in the shower.
TMI.
Hey, look, it makes it difficult when a person does it to themselves. You know, makes it real difficult. That's why I do it.
I guess in some cases, yeah.
Because the thing is like a lot of men do not know how to handle sensory overload. I mean, we're really not meant for it. You know, like yes, we drive trucks, but that's the border. That's a borderline. That you have to build up a tolerance for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, women, on the other hand, if it wasn't for that the fact that most trucks that most some of the smaller companies have a manual transmission. Now they would a lot of women would have problems driving a manual truck because they have to keep in mind the clutch, RPM speed, and everything.
And that would be sensory overload.
And that would be sensory overload. Now, can some women do it? Yes, some women can. I've seen some women on the road banging 18 gears. Just not a lot of them. I've seen a lot of some women on the road pulling flatbed, but it's usually traded their manual truck for an automatic, for an auto shifter.
Yeah. But to basically get around to topic, basically, this is basically how each sex or each person applies this shit in a relationship, basically. So it's it's crazy what we talk about when we talk about the red pill and stuff like that, and we talk about all the craziness and the divorce stuff like that and all the stuff, but we never really get down to like the nitty gritty on a lot of the shit that actually takes place in a relationship on a psychological level that fucks with the man or that fucks with the other person, basically. All the
Right.
mind games, all the other shit, the different types of mind games and things like that. Like, case in point, if a woman is just always, 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 always in your ear, always trying to do something, always trying to, you know, pick with you, it's basically sensory deprivation. It's actually sensory overload,
Sensory
basically,
overload.
when it comes to men, because she'll be doing shit while she's doing other shit. Case in point, if you ever been in a house with a woman, she'll try to have a conversation with you while there's traffic going and shit like that. It's like, I can't really hear you. I'm trying to hear you, But, you know, things like that actually happens quite often where, oh, she's talking about, yeah, this, that, and the other. Like, wait, what? Yeah, this, that, and the other. Like, and then she'll go back and tell you that, well, we had this conversation. No, we didn't have this conversation because traffic was flowing around me when this shit was taking place.
And I was trying not to die.
Well, no, I mean, well, let's just say, case in point, you're walking down the street or walking across a bridge, and traffic's just going around you, and it's basically like trying to have a conversation in a bar.
Right.
For all intents and purposes, is the best way to put it. And a lot of times, women say, "Well, we had this conversation." When did we actually have this conversation? When you got to think about it as a man, 9 times out of 10, you're probably were experiencing sensory overload when you're actually having a conversation. So a lot of the shit you do miss. Or the question was it done on purpose for plausible deniability when it comes down to it?
And like, and that's about basically where it came from on the Geneva Convention. A lot of the stuff, like I said, and the same thing that men and women do in relationships. It would literally get you in a Geneva Convention court violation. You know, that's
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why, after reading the Geneva Convention, and is one of the reasons as to why I'm so calm, and I try to sit down in a quiet setting if I'm going to have a conversation with a relative, like sister, brother, niece, nephew, significant other, friends, you know?
One thing I can say about that is when it comes to sensory overload, how men go about it with women is totally different. A lot of times when men apply sensory overload to a woman, it usually is a net benefit to a woman. Like, you just bought her some new shoes. You're about to take her shopping. You about to do all this shit, basically. Sensory overload. He about to take me out, girl. This, that, and the other girl. You know, shit like that, basically. That can actually be seen as sensory overload because in all technicality, even though there's a net benefit for that person, it's still a sensory overload. Now, the sad part about that is we talk about in the red pill how, women live on the what have you done for me lately spectrum. So when it comes down to it, you end up with a lot of women that, even though you did this, it doesn't matter. What are you doing for me today? What are you doing for me tomorrow? All that shit's yesterday. None of that stuff matters. It's like when women, it's kind of like what a lot of the people in the red pill say, if a woman's used to getting things, she never appreciates things.
Right.
When a man gets something, he appreciates things. Like if a man gets a compliment, he appreciates that compliment forever.
Right. And like I said, I'm still, like I said, I remember when I first got my first compliment.
Yeah, I remember when I got my first compliment. Shit.
And I'm like,
I remember all the stuff that people did nice for me or said nice to me, or the nice gestures or the nice words or the affirming, things that people said to me, or the gifts that people gave me, or the things that people did nice for me, because that sticks with me as a man, because hardly anybody ever does that for you, ironically. Right. So it ends up being one of those things where, when it happens for you as a man,
it means a lot.
It means a lot more to you, which is very nice. But when it happens for a woman, it's damn near meaningless. Yeah, so it's sad.
It's also shocking the first time it happens, and I know the first time it happened, I just looked behind me and see what was going on. So yeah, so behind me.
Yeah, I basically have to look up at the person, look at them weirdly, and be like, okay. Because things like that catch you off guard as a man, because you're not used to receiving or getting or anything in your life for all intents and purposes.
We pretty much live our lives in practically sensory deprivation tanks.
Yeah, and when somebody does something nice for you, that's literally sensory overload for you, because you're trying to figure out why this person did it for you. What's the reasoning behind it? How this made you feel when a person did it for you? Things like that are all sensory overload because this is not something that happens so often. So it's like, what the fuck? It's a what
What's going
you know
on?
what's going on basically. It's like, you ever see that one what's the name of that one reality show with that one dude that thought he was in a reality show, but it was a reality show about people that were actors. Bob, what about Bob or something? What was the name of it?
Oh man.
Bob. There was, yeah, but there was one that went on basically, and basically every single time somebody responded, they were acting, but his responses were genuine. That's typically a man's response when he gets a gift, like "Oh my God" or "What in the world" or things like that. It makes you feel good inside when people do that. I mean, you question it at first, but after the initial questioning, it makes you feel good.
Right. I mean, like I said, it is like I said, we're not used when you're not used to it for so long. It is pretty much what it is. Yeah. I expected. I thought we would have a bigger turnout, but yep. But damn, we should have came up with more topics.
Well, no, we're still talking about this and stuff like that. Well, and we're going to expound upon this shit because it's interesting when, like, when you look at it from a general standpoint, you can actually see how it benefits in, or
Is it
it doesn't benefit you, or if it's a net
right?
negative basically. Like, a lot of times in relationships, women pretty much use either sensory deprivation or sensory overload for a man.
And it's
uh
usually
Holding sex, um withholding sex, then nagging, or withholding sex and then doing something else extra, basically on top of that. Now
oh
that person's working from a deficit on top of the shit that's going on around them, and then you're being a negative person to that person at the same time. A lot of women forget that there's more than just one person in this relationship. There's two.
right.
How you treat the other person is reflected in their behavior, or it reflects positively on the relationship. So if you treat the other person like they're a second rate citizen or they ain't shit,
They're going to withdraw into ain't being shit and into a second rate citizen.
yeah,
It's kind of like how you treat a dog, you know?
yeah. But the neat thing about dogs, though, is like it's funny how people treat animals better than they treat their significant others.
Right, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Another thing is I notice about sensory deprivation is basically just being just I learned a lot of it from being in the truck, and well, when you get out of the truck and you see another person, you the instinct is you want to talk, you want to get out of that for a few minutes. You'll spend like 45 minutes talking to one person,
Hmm.
which basically in the relationship it can lead to cheating. You know, you're withholding a conversation from your significant other. You're withholding sex. You're withholding affection, and just because you're in that relationship doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. And that basically, with you withhold somebody, he or she is going to look for it elsewhere. Like if you're withholding affection, well, he or she is going to look elsewhere for said affection. Now, women are typically going to look for it faster and
Yeah,
be less patient than men, but men are going to be patient and wait it out for as long as they can until it becomes unbearable or until someone presents a big juicy steak to a big hungry salivating animal.
true.
That's pretty much what it is. It's like like I said, you're leaving the. There's a thing. I've always said this in my videos. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach and his balls. You know, you and it's showed in many of the memes that I've showed. Never let your husband leave out the house hungry or horny, because there's always a hoe out there willing that is waiting to make him a sandwich.
Yeah, true, there is. The sad part about that is women don't really think about stuff like that because they know in their minds, or they have this in their minds, that their husband can't or won't be doing anything, or nobody really wants them but themselves. And this is typically one of those things where women place themselves above the men that they're in a relationship with, so they believe that, the fact that they're less valuable to them, then they won't be able to actually go anywhere or do anything or be able to go outside the relationship for this very reason. Women do this on a regular basis. They think that way. They believe that way. It's no different than a woman basically saying, uh, because you don't want to date her, you're gay. Or because she believes a certain opinion about you, you're conservative. It's kind of like everybody's conservative because you don't present yourself a certain way, or you don't present yourself like they do, so everybody's conservative, but that person's liberal. Like, no, you're actually very conservative. And actually, I'm actually the liberal one, because when it comes down to it, a lot of the behaviors that a lot of people possess, because I always said, not everybody's 100% conservative and not everybody's 100% liberal. There are some things, and even, matter of fact, I think George Lopez even said this, I think, in a special. Like, there's certain things that you're very liberal about, and there's certain things that you're very conservative about. A lot of times, what a lot of people don't realize is, when it comes to you and yours, you're conservative. When it comes to anybody else, you're more liberal about it. That's typically how it works. And it's the funny thing about liberals. When it comes to their lives, if you judge them, they want to act conservative about it, or they want to pretend like they're conservative, or they want to be treated as they're conservative, or things like that in that manner. But the activities that they display are liberal activities, ironically. But they want to be treated as if they're actually still conservative. It's one of those conundrums where they want to pick and choose what part of conservative they want to actually participate in. They want all the things where, a man pays all this stuff, but they don't want to actually display the traits to actually show a man that they deserve this stuff. Another form of sensory deprivation or sensory overload that women actually employ in relationships, they actually employ it at the beginning of relationships, where
Oh,
the man actually has to work from a deficit, because the last man this, the last man
what's
that,
man that?
the last
Yeah,
man this, the last man that. So you're actually anytime a man gets into a relationship with a woman, most of the times, he's
you're in a
actually got to
hole.
work from a deficit. So she's making you jump around because of the person she chose fucked her over.
Right?
She's making you wait and do all this shit because the person before fucked her over. And this is something I always notice about women. When you ask him about it, well, he has some characters from the last person. Then my question to them is, then why are you trying to date that person? Well,
That's
I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Are you really trying to give him the benefit of the doubt?
you're
Or are you
really just trying.
his gauntlet?
The way it is like it seems like she's trying to change and manipulate him into not being into either being another version of that same man that she got out of a terrible relationship with, or
Yeah,
trying to get him to be, oh, not that, trying to get him to change so that he can hopefully get some brownie points. And the thing
yeah.
is like, I'm not, like I said, I always said this: what you see
Like,
is
case
what
in
you
point.
get.
Yeah, what you see, I'm the same way basically, because I'm very blatantly honest. And if you ask me a question, I'll give you an answer. You may not like what comes out of my mouth, but you're going to get a genuine answer from me. You're going to get my genuine character. You're going to get my genuine time, basically, at the same time. But what you can't say it to me is, well, you have these red flags like these other people that were in my life,
Uh,
but this. Now, me personally, if I hear that, that's not you saying you. That's not well. And the sad part about that, women will say that, and then in their minds they believe that because they're sticking around, you should be blessed, or you should be happy that I'm sticking around.
aka,
The sad part about that is you should feel disrespected or insulted if that's the case, if they're sticking around, ironically. And the sad part about that is when it comes to men, we don't really have that, you know, mindset. We feel appreciated that this person's sticking around, despite the fact that they're painting us in a certain light and they put us in a certain category, despite the fact it's actually an insult to you as a man for a woman to stick around, despite the fact that she's comparing you to her exes and saying that you have all these qualities.
that
It's
first
very
date,
bad. It's a
that
very bad. It's a very bad. It's nothing good that you should be. It's nothing good that you should praise.
you should walk away. You should have walked away as soon as he says, "Oh, you have some of the red flags." You should have just got up,
Yeah,
pushed the
that
chair,
if
and
to
paid
me,
your
to me,
tab.
if a woman believes I have red flags, then this need not to happen.
Right?
This relationship needs not to happen at all,
Don't
because
piss on.
I don't. Because at that moment in time, you already placed your value on me right there, right then and there. You're
Right?
basically telling me that because even though this is happening and going on, I should be gracious or happy that you're sticking around. That is disrespectful and very demeaning.
You might as well have somebody piss on your leg and tell you it's raining.
Yeah. Or it's like you can't do that and then expect men to actually respond in positive ways or better ways. Because the sad part about that is that's literally a sign of sensory overload or deprivation to a man for the fact that he's literally in a deficit. And you telling them that, you know, that I'm going to stick around anyway, and you should be happy. Basically, you implying that because you're sticking around, that you should be happy that I'm sticking around, is applying that he is of no value to you, and you're basically demeaning him and basically making him a second-rate citizen at that point.
How she comes at you in the first date of the relationship or first two dates of the relationship is what to be expected throughout the entirety of the relationship.
Yeah, and how a person goes about things is basically like a lot of times what I've noticed with a lot of women that date or what a lot of women that say, well, this last person, uh, this, that, and the other. And you start looking at a lot of the behaviors that they display, then you realize that this person, despite the fact that this person said their other person was controlling, you realize that they're actually the controlling one. Like, I was talking to a woman the other day, and she was saying about her exes and stuff like that, and things like that. And we were kind of friends, so I stopped being friends with her because her attitude was just off. Like she likes to control things. Basically, she has this habit where she loves to control everything and various things and even micromanage things basically within the relationship, that sadly, and she likes to have control over it in the way that she goes about it, in the way that she presents herself, in the way that she says things, literally comes out of her mouth saying that she likes to control things or likes to control situations or relationships. Like, I remember the one time, I shit you not, like, if you know anything about me, I'm always early.
Yeah,
You tell me to come pick you up, you tell me to come get you, I'm always early.
right.
Everybody notices about me. It's always been a part of my character because of who I am and how I grew up. But one of those things that you run into with a lot of people is, you know, well, if a woman says it to you when you're there to pick them up, instead of like inviting you in, you're supposed to be like quote unquote closer friends, and she tells you to go right around the block and then come back in a little bit. That woman's controlling.
Right. And the
You
thing
know,
is,
you literally showed up to be nice, to go out or hang out or take them somewhere, and they tell you this.
That's kind of disrespectful, you
Yeah, it's
know?
like you could offer me some water. Did you ask me maybe I need to go to the bathroom? Things like that, basically. And the fact that the person, you know, never invites you in or never gives you any water or none of this stuff gives you a clear sign of who they are as a human being and how they possibly are in an actual relationship, ironically.
Right,
So that moment right there, I realized that one, this person's not friends material at all
right.
because this person doesn't care about my well being, and they're telling me to go do something and come back, and I'll be ready.
It's crazy. It's crazy that I just say that. It's like I had a I guess I haven't talked to this person in a while. Friend, I guess it was a friend. She had picked a dude that was I guess he would be considered an underachiever because Tico knows this person, or you know,
Oh, I know what you're talking.
yeah,
I know what you're talking about. Go ahead.
yeah. So now she already knows that I'm crazy, but I have control over myself.
Hmm.
But she picked a person that does not have any form of concept of emotional control, you know.
Hmm.
And personally, I would call her a buzzer beater if she managed to have a kid by that dude. I feel bad for her. Actually, I don't feel bad for her. I feel bad for the kid, but hey, that's what she wanted. She wanted that's who she wanted to shoot the final shot at.
Yeah, true.
You had a person who would basically who was well on his way to becoming a property owner, but yet you chose a person who can't who equivalently can't even wipe his own behind in a relationship with his emotions.
Basically, yeah.
You chose an emotional toddler.
And this
And
is something I always notice about women. They always say this stuff when it comes down to it. Uh, my problem with women when they always come up with excuses for why they dated that person and stuff like that. Well, you don't really know a person. That's bullshit. Women know if they want to fuck a person within the first few seconds of meeting that person. You can't sit up here and tell me you don't know a person if you already know that you want to fuck that person or you know that you can trust this person.
right, a woman will, if she wants to see you, she will see you. There was an article about a chick breaking out of prison, holding an Uber driver hostage just to see a man. You know, it's crazy. It was a long time ago, but if she wants to see you, she will find time to see you.
Yeah, and typically in relationships like that where you actually see somebody. Well, needless to say, the end of that story was my black ass didn't come back, and I just left that hoe where she was standing, basically, and we're not friends anymore. But
Oh yeah,
because I'm Tico motherfucking Trent. Let's just keep it 100. I'm not coming
right,
back. I'm not driving around. You weren't a good host, nor were you a gracious guest, basically. No, you weren't a gracious host, so your ass is being left where you are. That's the
right,
truth. And the sad part about that is what a lot of men run into is they run into women like that in relationships. And this is where the sensory deprivation and the sensory overload comes into play when it comes to women applying shit to men.
right.
Like,
And
case in point, and this is what I mean by that in the beginning of a relationship. Oh, well, I don't know about you. You exhibit some red flags, but this. Okay, so you just put the person down, but you just gave the person a kiss, and you flirted with the person, and now you're going on about your merry way, and you're giving the person, you know, all that stuff, basically. Okay,
they
cool.
can't.
You basically just did what you basically just did was take somebody and knock them down, then brought them back up, then knocked them down, then brought them back up, then knock them down again. So basically, it's a revolving door of up and down for this man in a relationship. So he doesn't know what's going on. It's basically like being in a room with a. It's like if you've ever been tortured and they put you in a white room and they play a bunch of sound and they blink lights off and on in your face at the same time so you can be misoriented and disoriented at the same time. Women do this shit on a regular basis to men. They always try to leave them misoriented or disoriented while in a relationship. Like, okay, what's going on, or what's this? It's kind of like what I said about the relationship while cars are driving by you. I mean, the conversation, women will have conversations with you while the cars are driving by and then be like, well, we talked about this the other day. No, bitch, the cars was driving by.
Right.
You didn't talk about shit. I didn't even
And
hear you. I just
and you're
assume you say it half the damn time because this is the situation you put us in so you can have this conversation with me. So, was this planned and
probably
intentional?
one.
Or all the other stuff when it comes down to it. And it's the problem that I have with a lot of people when they say that, well, you don't know a person until you try. No, you know a person. You know a person. You know. And here's the thing that I have a problem with when it comes to women. Women, well, you don't know if you if you're friends or if you need to date somebody, but you got to try it out. Like, no, you don't. You can pretty much look at a person and determine, okay, that person's friendship material. You can look at another person and be like, I'd bang that person, or that's just the sex, that's just benefits, or just this person.
That's
And
just
you can look at another person and be like, that's relationship material. The sad part about that is men do it on a regular basis.
right. And
Men
I'm the
men have women that they would like to fuck or will fuck.
right.
Men have women that they would like to have a relationship with, like a meaningful romantic relationship with, and men have people who they consider their friends or have friends, having their friends, have as friends basically. And when a
Right.
man has friends, it's meaningful to him, and those friends actually mean something to him. Now, every
Right.
now and again, a man may make a bad decision on a friend, and he might have a bad friend in the ranks. But typically, men know how to weed out those people.
Right. And the crazy thing about it is like I'm not the type of person, like I said, that will dust it off. That'll dust off. Basically, another one other thing. One of my exploits is when I came back from the Marine Corps. Now, if you know me, you know that that if you show signs of trying to perform sensory deprivation, I wasn't like this till after I got out the Marine Corps. If you show signs of sensory deprivation, I'm gonna play along with it for a little while, just to see how far you're gonna go, you know, just to see how far you're gonna go. And this happened after I got out the Marine Corps, like with the first chick that I was talking to, and that was the last bit of kindness that I've ever had, like 5 months pregnant.
Yeah.
What did it for me is when I went to go see her and I ran out of fuel in the Jeep Wrangler. Those of you know Jeep Wranglers, they're not good on fuel, especially when you got to bust the drive shaft. You have to use 4-wheel drive.
True
So
story.
yeah, they're terrible on fuel. But what she did, what she did was she brought her sister into the mix, and they both grilled me, and I sat there and I listened to this, and her sister said these famous words. That's why I can't stand the active duty military. Now at the time, that was I've met some good people there. That's just and I got up and says, you know what? You're right. I see what the problem is, and I'm gonna fix it. And I walked out.
That's typically all you can do.
I walked out.
Yeah.
Now my brother up here. He's a simp. He was gonna go down to Oakland to pay his phone bill, and he says, "Hey, why don't you call her up? Why don't you call her up and see if she needs anything? She needs to go downtown." Like, and I'm like, okay. I get my brother, go downtown. I says, "Hey, going downtown. I'm going close to downtown. You want to come? You need anything? You need me to pick you up or something?" Lo and behold, she was downtown. My brother got in the back seat. She got in the passenger seat. I drop her off at her place. Come in there, and her apparently she has a whole bunch of women in her house. Not a single dude in sight. Not a single dude in sight.
Mm.
Now, that right there is definitely a sensory deprivation.
Yeah, especially if
Now,
you're a man walking into that.
right?
Sensory overload. Another form of sensory
Sensory.
overload and sensory deprivation in relationships is what they refer to as verbal diarrhea or word salad or whatever the hell they refer to it as. Typically, what
Uh,
I've noticed, verbal diarrhea, basically.
yep.
Now what I've noticed with this is because I'm a certain person and I like to think, and I'm typically an introvert and I keep to myself. If I want to get rid of somebody or if I don't want somebody in my life, I will overwhelm them with a bunch of shit. Especially if I know that, you know, they have anxiety or if they have anxiety or they have to process stuff after every single time they do something. This is typically when you know you're dealing with somebody who is working at a deficit or has some type of problems or some type of not developmental problems, but some type of social problems or some type of psychological problems. Is what you'll notice is because typically if you're a man and you're used to you process information and you're used to processing information and you process it and take it in. This is typically what you do if you're like military or if you're on a day-to-day basis or if you're sensing danger, things like that. Men typically do. But what I notice with a small batch of men nowadays, they have a problem with processing things right then and there. So they have to sit down and actually think about it over a period of time or over a couple of days, weeks, or months. So when you're dealing with somebody that actually got to think about shit like that, they suffer from psychological problems, first off. Secondly, the chances of them making good decisions are slim to none. It's not the fact that they're overanalyzing this stuff, it's the fact that they can't make a decision right then and there. And you have to question their judgment anytime they do that. You have to question their ability to survive or their ability to make proper decisions
Or
based
adapt.
on or adapt to things basically. Because if you can't make a decision right then and there, or you can't make a decision on the spot, hell, I'm an introvert. I may not always verbalize the shit, but I can make a decision like that.
I I
I might
have at
think
least
about things for a long time, but I know when I'm dealing with the right person or the wrong person, or things like that, based on the fact that all the information that I gathered it right then and there. And people will say, well, you already wrote the person off. No, I didn't. I didn't write the person off. I just gather information faster than you. I don't have to sit there after the fact and think about the shit for days, weeks, months. I've got the information, I've processed the information, I analyzed the information,
and now
and
you're implementing.
what I came to the conclusion is this is what this is, this is how it's working. And people always try to use that when they try to say, well, people who do that are emotionally intelligent. No, they're not. You're emotionally stunted. Because if it takes a while for you to actually think about something about a person, that lets me know what you're going to be like in an actual relationship when it comes to me. Like, I already know what you're going to be like in a relationship. You like control. And when things get out of control, you got to analyze it and process it. for days, weeks, months. But the problem is life keeps going. So your days, weeks, months, I don't got time to wait for that.
Right.
Because when I think about it, you didn't have this problem with this when you were dating in relationships before or after or any other time. You analyzed that shit pretty quickly and you were fine with it and you stuck it out basically.
Right. And
So
now
where was all the analyzing then? And it's the
I
problem that I have with people and women. It's like, oh, now you want to analyze and now you want to, do all this stuff now. Like, where was that earlier? That you
why
could have
didn't you
saved yourself
analyze?
the headache years ago, partners ago,
Right.
5 partners ago, 6 partners ago,
One
90
kid,
partners ago.
two, one
Yeah,
kid, two kid, three
yeah,
kid, four,
So, and this is
seven
the
kid,
thing.
more.
It's not the fact that you're being picked on. It's more or less the fact that this is how the world works. If it takes you too long to think about something, 9 times out of 10, it's already gone.
Right.
If you have to process something that somebody did or said or all that other stuff, it shouldn't take you that long to process the shit. You should realize it on the spot. Like a good example of somebody who realizes shit on the spot is this one guy that's always in podcasts that he always annoys women or pisses women off, or he'll tell you, he basically learns people very quickly and he can determine if he actually likes that person personality and or everything about that person. And people say, well, he writes people off. No, he knows what he sees. He knows what he's reading from that person, and he gathers information faster than you. I
Right.
forget his name right now, but he's the one that you know he's the one that people always talk about when he called he always calls women out. Like, matter of fact, he
Yeah.
was on that one chick date with Sasha or whatever the hell her name is, that fresh from Fresh and Fit was on from Fresh and Fit with that chick, and Andrew Tate was on there with her too. He basically was on that show and he basically called her out and she didn't like it.
I've been on a few podcasts where I called a few people out. They didn't like it. You
Yeah.
know.
And the sad part about that is that's the best way you can actually analyze things and you gather information. Because people will say, well, because you did a word salad, I know all I need to know about you. Actually, you don't. I did that shit on purpose. Because if you actually look at me and how I actually communicate with people, it's two totally different ways. Like, Win knows, like, my text messages are 1-line answers, 2-line answers, like respond this, respond that, or respond
Right.
here and there. But it's never like a lengthy text or a bunch of text messages there, basically.
That takes too much work.
Yeah, that does. So I got to text all this much, and
I'll just call you.
then we should be talking on the phone then at this point.
Right. Right.
I'm serious. Like, so me, when I'm dealing with somebody that has that and they're flaky or they're annoying, I typically will overload them with a bunch of text that I normally wouldn't overload them with because it's just fun. And the funny thing about that, if you know anything about me, that quick text thing that people do, where you can pull up a bunch of text predetermined text that you already have. I have a bunch of those in my freaking thing where I could just hit it and just keep sending it.
Yeah, I've like said after ding ding ding, I give up after a while.
Yeah, it's because it's one of those things where it's like because I look at it like this: when it comes to women, if you're disrespectful to me, you will find out by how I respond to you. And I'm not even going to get mad at you. I'm not going to be like this, that, and the other. I'm not going to call you out your name. I'm basically going to respond in a way that, let you know that, one, you ain't finna do this shit. Two, you went too fucking far. And three, now you're assuming. So when it comes down to it, I basically respond in a manner in which, like, case in point, it's kind of like what I said about that thing. Because somebody was telling me that, oh, you're a conservative. It's okay to be a conservative. Like, no, I'm not really conservative. I'm not conservative at all. Some of the shit I've done in life, in my past, says otherwise. I just carry myself as such because that's my character, and I'm not finna destroy my character. Even if I do something, I will still carry myself in a way to protect myself from dumb shit from happening to me. I don't know, cops, trigger happy cops, things like that. Basically, I know how to conduct myself. It's like it's kind of like what I say about being. It's like because I always tell people I'm a criminal, but I still know how to carry myself in a way where the cops ain't gonna be sitting there harassing me and on my ass all the damn time. Basically, like, why do you need that much heat? Do you like that much attention? It's like I get that, and then people will say stuff like, "Well, the way you paint certain groups of people," it's like, well, no. Think of it like this, and I'm gonna use this as an example: African Americans and Latinos.
Hmm.
We both are poor. We both grow up poor. We both end up in poor parts of the neighborhoods and stuff like that, and it's great. Okay, cool. However, how come it is when it comes down to it, Latinos don't commit crimes at the same rate as African Americans?
That's a good question. That's a doggone good question.
And the sad part about that, even now, even though Latinos outnumber Black people now,
They still commit less crimes.
how come statistically they still don't put up the numbers like Black people? Like African Americans. It's like it just blows my mind. Even if you were to break down every Black group within being Black, how come Jamaicans don't put up those numbers? And they come from a violent country, my God. How come Africans don't put up those numbers?
Ghana. People from
Like
Ghana.
consistent
West
to the number of people, what they refer to it as, because if you break down all the Black groups basically, and you basically put them up on the wall, you realize that, you know, you have to question and ask yourself, is this really a Black problem, or is it a certain group of people problem?
It seems to me like it's a certain group of people problem.
Because like I've met Africans from like war-torn countries that got warlords, and they got borders where people kill them at and stuff like that, and even Arab countries where they do shit like that. When they get here, how come they don't put up those numbers? How come North Koreans don't put up those numbers when they come to America?
That's strange because they have a family.
How come the Chinese straight from the CCP itself? How come they don't come over here and put up those numbers?
Because they have a family that to actually have some pride in their family.
Yeah, and it's things like this that make me think. It's like, well, they're oppressed. Okay. There are people in North Korea oppressed, but when they get here, they don't act oppressed.
Right. The thing is,
there's people in China right now.
They're oppressed.
1 billion people in China right now that come here and they don't act oppressed. And their government is oppressive. Literally till this day.
When you basically have family values to where you do not want to embarrass your family. You don't want to bring shame to your family. You don't want to basically humiliate your family. Because first things foremost, look at the family structure of all of those different cultures. And then you look at the family structure of Black Americans cultures. It's pretty terrible, ain't it? It's pretty freaking terrible.
I mean, and the sad part about that is I get that. Okay, this happened. Okay, what about now? Well, it's all this stuff from back in the past and this, that, and the other.
It's nothing. It has absolutely nothing involving the past. It's
like, okay, at the same time, if you repeat a lot of the shit that you're doing and the behaviors you're doing, you're basically replicating the past. If you act like I told a story about it one time when I was downtown on one of the downtown Pittsburgh on one of the near the cultural district on one of the nights where they show like plays and ballet and shit like that. and there was a white family. They were living in their car leaving. They were all dressed up nicely. They were in their car leaving to leave town, and they cut down Wood Street. Now, if you know anything about Pittsburgh, there's this
Yep.
place called Wood Street, and then there's the Wood Street
T
Junction
station.
where you come out from the T station. Okay, cool. Now, something I noticed about that is there was this little black kid that walked as the car was driving by. He literally stuck his hand in the car next to the man's daughter's head and go blah 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 blah. At what point is that actually appropriate?
It isn't. It
At what
never
point
is.
does that say that you're oppressed and you're being treated unfairly? You basically, by doing that, you literally put yourself in harm's way, because what if that person responds with a gun because he thinks his daughter's in danger? What if that person responds with violence because they believe that their daughter, who they were supposed to protect and provide for, is now sensing danger, feeling danger? The sad part about that little white girl was scared.
Uh-huh.
Bad for her. It's like
That,
she was
that,
minding her business. She was out on the night of town with her family. She went to go see a play or anything, and now she got somebody reaching in her car, talk about blah 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 blah, like
and
he
that
really has a gun in his hand.
and that's gonna leave lasting trauma.
Yeah, on that little girl. On top of that, that actually paints a picture of the whole entire community when you do shit like that.
Yeah.
So
But
I get that people always talk about, like, oh well, you got to cut them some slack, or you got to give them some break. I do. I give
you're
people the benefit of the doubt, but when you keep replicating certain behaviors over and over again, but you expect people to help you, but you keep on replicating those same behaviors over and over again, it,
it's insanity. It's the
yeah,
sole
it's
perfect
like thinking,
definition of
it's like
insanity.
saying that you shouldn't treat us this way, but you're acting that way. That's like sticking a square peg in a round hole multiple times over and over again.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over
Over
and
and over
over
again, yeah. And it is insanity. It's like, but to finish that story, unfortunately, that black kid ended up dying
again.
because the dad, being a dad, literally pulled out a gun and shot him because he believed his daughter was in danger in the back seat of a car. Because at the end of the day, people will say, well, he didn't really have a gun. Well, nobody knows that.
Hey, like I said, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Now he's in the permanent sensory deprivation box.
Yeah. And what made you think that was a great idea? And that's the problem with a lot of people in this day and age. They don't think before they act. They don't think about the long-term consequences to their actions anymore.
And to be
They
honest
just
with
do.
you, exactly. They don't think, they just do.
But then they say, well, you should have handled it differently. No. In
No?
a situation where you think your life's in danger, you don't handle anything differently. You basically eliminate the problem.
You take care of the problem before it
Yeah.
becomes a bigger problem.
And if you keep displaying the same archetype over and over again, people believe it. Case in point, I always talk about traveling and going different places and stuff like that. And you got people in your white European countries that literally ask a black man to act black. What the
That's
fuck does that
crazy.
mean? They want you to act gangster and do that extra ghetto shit, basically. It's like, that's not cute. But because that's how the media portrays it, and that's what black people emulate on a daily basis, that's the thing to do. Like, if you want to be known for acting black or being gangster, then I guess it's good. The sad part about that is you don't just see it when they do that. The whole entire rap industry is surrounded by acting gangster
Right.
or being gangster or being something that you're really not.
And that's one of the reasons why I just if I were to travel the world and somebody were to tell me to act black, I'm like, I would say something. I would definitely say something.
Yeah, it's like it's fine if you want to do that, but
Uh,
know that it's like what I say to women. It's fine that you want to do that. I'm perfectly fine with that. You be you, but there's consequences to your actions.
right. And I'll say act German. I'm that type of person. Act
And the sad part
German.
about that, you'll get that in Germany with a lot of white women that listen to rap now and are all up on hip hop and shit like that. You'll get that with a lot of them over in Germany. It's funny, or you'll get
I
that in
might.
like a lot like Sweden. You'll get that in like a lot of these Scandinavian countries or the European countries and shit like that. And,
Yeah,
and it's kind of funny to hear and watch. It's
Tico. Yeah, yeah. Tico knows what I mean by act German.
yeah, but yeah, when it comes down to it, it's one of those things where like you can't always, and this is a form of deprivation and sensory overload. When you grow up in those neighborhoods, you typically end up there's two types of people in those neighborhoods when it comes to men. There's the educated lame,
Yeah, like me.
and then there's the thug or the gangster or the basically everybody that falls into that category that's cool. Pookie and Ray Ray, basically.
I outlived them.
Sad part about that is a lot of people glorify the Pookie and Ray Ray, but they don't glorify, you know, the guy that
The-
actually gets an education.
Right.
Like it's funny because like the sad part about that is I always find it funny how women always talk about, well, black men are putting us down. You're the reason why black men are putting you down.
And
You
about
can't you can't sit up here and say to a man that actually got his shit together at a young age and wants to go on and do better things that he's an educated lame and you would never date him and this, that, and the other, and this, that, and the other, and this, that, and the other, and expect him to actually reciprocate.
and about
If
the
you
first.
rejected him, if you rejected him all his life and he grows up to resent black women, you basically taught that man how to self-hate.
Right. And about the first chick out the Marine Corps. She her the man that she's pregnant about. She was pregnant by basically collected scrap.
Yeah.
Was a scrap collector.
Mm-hmm.
And
And that's
the
the best. And
go
the
ahead.
sad part about that is this is where women create this. This is where black women create this chasm when it comes to a lot of the black men in a neighborhood or the culture. You basically call this man out their name all their lives. You tease them, you pick on them, you basically bully the person.
Yeah.
You basically bully the person, and you expect them to reciprocate love and care and affection towards you when you pretty much destroyed that person and who that person was when they were younger.
Like I said, people would say that I used to
People don't
be. I
think,
used to,
yeah, people don't think outside themselves, and they don't think of the long term ramifications and damage that you put on other people.
and they put and it's basically another form of sensory deprivation,
Racing, yeah, sensory overload. Because now this person believes he's not good enough to date a black woman. He'll never be able to date a black woman. Now he's dating an Asian chick or a white chick now because they seen his potential, and now they're dating the man. This is why a lot of men go outside the race
right? Passport
because they were
bros.
rejected. Well, no, it's not even that though. Passport Bros is a new
It's a
thing.
new con,
Yeah,
right?
but when it comes to Pookie and Ray, I mean, when it comes to the educated lame, that's an old thing. Not all passport bros are the educated lane.
Right.
A lot of passport bros are just tired of the bullshit. But when you treat that person like that, and that person that can possibly be a future valuable asset to the community and possibly make it better, but you outcast them, ostracize them, and make them that way, and then you wonder why they don't want to come back to the community or don't want to give back to the community. That's like telling me, as a Afro Latino, Afro Caribbean, that you're not black, so you don't get a chance to speak on this. then turning around and twisting your lips and turning around and telling me that I should come back, do nice things for the community, and this, that, and the other. Wait a minute, 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 wait a minute. You just told me I'm not black, really black, and I can't speak on this stuff, but you want me to drop my hard-earned money on this shit now?
Yeah, I guess that's
Make
how
that
they
make
want
sense.
it now.
Make that make sense for me, please. It's like you can't do that to people and expect people to be unified. Because the sad part about that is when I think back to all the shit that I've ever suffered from, or all the shit that actually has been done to me, there's always been a black woman, an African American woman, backing the shit, or
Right.
that's been the benefactor of any of the dumb shit that's ever happened to me, or
Like,
that's been backing the dumb shit that's happened to me. Like, I don't always talk about that, but when I do, I realize that when it comes down to it, and it's the reason why I never really date African American women, for that very reason, because the way they carry themselves, the way they act, and the way it don't matter if they're educated and they could be a veterinarian, or they're educated and they're like, I don't know, they're a doctor or a lawyer or anything. The sad part about that is, at the end of the damn day, a lot of them are cut from the same cloth.
and you
They
can't.
treat people a certain way, but then they expect those people to come back in in return and be nice to them.
Um,
Or these same women that makes the same dumb decisions like that, these are the same women that make stupid decisions on a regular basis in relationships, but then want to turn around and make you run the gauntlet when they didn't make the other people run the gauntlet.
that
Now
makes
all of a
perfect
sudden
sense.
now we want to be responsible. But the sad part about that, when it comes to guys that are high value, or guys who know their worth, they're not going to stick around for that. But the problem with guys like that is, what you can't do as a high value guy is break up with that woman, because then she'll put you in a category like, I don't understand what happened. He did this, that, and the other. I mean, if you do,
And
it's one of those things where, like, they're looking for you and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where, like, if you stick around with a person like that, they're basically always looking for control in a relationship. They're
you
always
know the
looking to
crazy.
have the upper hand in a relationship. And people will
The,
say, well, you got to learn how to handle that better. It's not about handling anything better. I shouldn't have to handle any damn thing.
the crazy thing about
You
it
you
is
handle you handle animals. Where you trying to tell me
exactly.
you're an animal now?
Yeah, the exact. That's one of the ways I'm saying. It's like, the crazy things about it is
What?
that they have the nerve to say, oh, you can't handle it, or something like you need to heal. You know.
Yeah, or you need a hand. Well, you better get a handle on it. Like, no, it's not about getting a handle on it. In the natural progressions of a relationship, let it be friendship or anything, I shouldn't have to handle anything. I shouldn't have to handle
Exactly.
you like you're a wild animal. I
I'll
shouldn't
put
have
it.
to handle you. I shouldn't have to handle you like you're some oxen or bull going mad. Like, I grew up on a farm. I handle animals. If you, Why do you want me to treat you as something else, like that you're not? I mean, granted, humans and mammals, humans are mammals and they are animals and they fall in the animal kingdom, but at the same time, we have this cognizance and this intellect to actually know right from wrong, or when we're doing wrong to somebody else, but we always don't want to abide by that.
The
Why is
thing
that?
is, I used to walk people's dogs and train people's dogs. I'm type person like, what type of leash do you want? You want a pink diamond studded leash, or do you want a black diamond studded leash? Give you the choice, and then we'll walk down the street with a leash on.
Yeah, that's always the best thing to do, but people have a problem with following through and doing things. And the sad part about that, they don't understand the residual damage that they did to somebody, but they want to say, well, I don't know why that person's acting like that. I never did anything wrong. Well, the residual damage is there. And I get that there's a lot of residual damage from the black community, but if you keep on doing that to each other, you're going to
Right?
keep perpetuating that and keep on doing it. And it takes a smart person or an intelligent person to break that cycle. But the sad part about it, in the black community, in African American
Yeah.
community, A person
Intelligent
that
people
breaks
are
that
frowned
cycle,
down.
a person that breaks that cycle is looked down upon.
It's like a
Is looked
revolving
down
door.
upon. It's
It's like
like
a re-
they're the worst of the worst. They're the educated lame, or they acting like they too good or too this, that, and the other.
They're acting
They're
all
acting
uppity.
yeah, uppity. Yeah, there's all this stuff. They a townhouse nigga. All this other stuff. Now, are there people that deserve to be called townhouse niggas? Yeah, there are. However, not everybody falls into that category. Some people like better things or like a better quality of life. But to shame them for wanting a better quality of life is fucked up. And that's the fucked up part of the whole entire thing.
Yep.
And the part about that is you watch it happen all the time in the neighborhood on a regular basis.
I lived it.
I've lived it too. I've seen it. I lived it. When I came here to visit my mom in the summertime, I've seen it all the time. I've even felt like I always said this because and this is why I don't date African American women, because I always ran into problems with African American women, and I didn't even do any fucking thing wrong to deserve the shit. Now, I would admit when I was wrong. I always admit when I'm wrong. I even laugh about the shit while I'm admitting about the shit being wrong. So I'm 100% honest about the shit. But something that you'll learn and something that my grandmothers taught me and my granddad's taught me is women don't like rejection. And the first thing I learned coming to America was the fallout to if you reject a white woman and the fallout to if you reject the African American woman.
Ooh, two different, like night and day.
Two different things. A white woman will pretty much drop a nuke on your life and try to destroy your whole entire life, social, every fucking thing. It's typically how it works with white women. They'll basically drop a
Black,
nuke on your life if you reject them or turn down their advances. They'll pretty much try to accuse you of shit basically at that point.
a black woman will just send her
Her
simps to
brother,
kill.
cousin, friend's son, whatever the hell, to basically go
Dude,
handle you basically.
the
You see how
dude in
it
the friend
works?
zone. The dude in the friend zone.
Or the dude to the friend zone, the simp, everybody. And the sad part about that is I've noticed that's how it usually works when it comes to black women and white women. A white woman will try to destroy you socially. That way you have nothing to come back to. You can't climb out of it. So all your social credit is gone. And everybody believes that this is who you are as a human being. And even if the truth comes out, you're still that person no matter what.
Right.
Fuck what the judge says. You're that person. You're guilty. You're guilty because
And
you've
that's
already been
what.
tried. And this is the thing about white women. They'll basically try you by the court of public opinion.
And for me,
Whereas
and that.
black women will put you on trial in the hood. They'll send a death squad. They'll send somebody to, fuck you up or fuck you over, basically. Things like that, basically.
And that's the reason why I keep it at least an arm's distance, so at least two
I'm
arms.
not blaming all black women for this, but when you and I always find it funny how women will defend themselves for doing dumb shit or making dumb decisions and stuff like that to treat a person. But when you actually respond with the same thing and matter, the same tone and the same thing, they'll try to say, well, not everybody's like that. Well, you just literally treated me the same way. So you obviously believe everybody's like that.
Right.
Therefore, what I'm about to say is valid,
My
whether you
favorite.
like it or not.
My
But at the end
favorite
of the
one is
day,
you need to
you're
heal.
being. It's funny how you want to judge everybody based on your past relationships. If I'm not even in a relationship with that person, I judge everybody based on my past experiences. It's perfectly fine for you to do it, but when I do it, it's wrong. And I should treat people as individuals. No, the things go both ways. You
Right.
can't have it one way. You can't treat somebody like well about this, that, and the other, and you got a lot of these qualities the same as this person. Then why are you here? Because I said to women many times in relationships, well, he does this, that, and the other, and this, that, and the other. Then why do you continue?
Right.
Well, you don't understand. No, I understand. I understand that you need to quit and not come at me with excuses. Because this is the thing that women always are good at doing. You're good at using excuses. But when you're me, You're good at calling bullshit on excuses.
And
You're good at shooting down their excuses. And then now you're a problem now when you're shooting down their excuses. Or you're a meanie, or you're this, or you're that, or you're this person. No, I like consistency. I like consistency. I've always said that. Anything about me is consistency. I'm not an ass. I'm not critical to people. Case in point, I said this to another person. Like, if you didn't wear a mask during COVID, and you don't wear a mask in your own city with the air quality being poor, and you never wore a mask during COVID, you never wore a mask during this, you never wore a mask when there's during allergy season, you never wore a mask when the pollen's kicking in, you never wore a mask when you live next door to a fire, but all of a sudden now, when you go to Philadelphia and Canada's on fire, now you want to wear a mask.
My favorite. That's funny. That is funny.
Makes sense to me.
Like I said, I have no idea. I mean, if you can, I can. If you can,
yeah, it's like that part about that is people. Why are you so critical? No, nigga, I'm not critical. I like consistency. Well, they're two different things. Yeah, they're two different things. But if I see you like this in this light, if I see you like this in this light, if I see you like this in this light, if I see you like this in this light, and all of a sudden now you're doing something else totally different, you're not being consistent. That's not critical. That's something. It's basically like if I walk past something every day and it's the same thing every day, I'm going to keep walking past it and noticing it. Like, oh, interesting. Yeah, keep walking. Now, the one time I walk past it, if it's different, I'm going to have to stop and look at it. That's not me being critical. That's me noticing that my environment is out of place.
We are wired mentally to notice patterns.
Yeah, notice patterns. Yes. So that's not critical. It's a pattern. And the sad part about that is what a lot of people don't know, and what a lot of women don't know, is this is what men usually follow to determine if something's okay or off, wrong, dangerous, or anything. This is why men are comfortable walking down the street at night. Newsflash. When something's off to a man, he's typically not going to continuously walk that pattern. If something's off to a man or something's different about the way he normally walks, he's not going to take that way. He'll see it, sense it, and probably go around it or cross the street on the other side because he knows there's danger. He knows there's something about that that's off. It's kind of like military men. You basically learn your environment. If something's off about your environment, either you're about to be ambushed, either there's there's an enemy in your camp, any of that shit.
It's called, like I said, we listen to the wildlife. Like if the crickets are still chirping, everything's all good. If the second it's all silent,
then there's a problem.
It's kind of
like what parents say about their children. As long as they're loud and playing, everything is fine. The minute it gets quiet, something's off. You see what I'm saying? So we know that innately. But the sad part about that is we go out in the world and try to pretend like the world's not dangerous. Or that the world's not dangerous.
Yeah, and that's how you get your kid in a white Econoline van.
Yeah, and that's how you end up dead. Or raped, or murdered, or robbed, or any of the above. You basically end up a victim by not paying attention to your environment. I always find it funny how women say, well, we should be able to walk down the street at night and not have to worry about our safety. Now,
what type of Disney princess land you live in?
Now, here's what I notice about women and men when they walk down the street at night. Typically, when a man walks down the street at night, now correct me if I'm wrong, when a man walks down the street at night, he walks down the street, most times in the most lit areas to get to where he goes from point A to point B. Period. It don't matter how much of a badass he think he is. It don't matter if he's the best, kickboxer in the world. It don't matter if he got pecs and pecs. It don't matter. He's basically going to go from point A to point B in a decently lit area. This is what I notice with women when they walk home at night, quote unquote. I'm gonna cut through the alley. It's faster. What? What? What?
And you wonder why shit. Well, you wonder why shit happens.
Yeah, and it's like, the fuck? And you wonder why you're a victim. I'm not blaming victims or I'm not shaming victims, but I'm literally pointing out how you could have prevented yourself from being a victim. And you can't sit up here and say it wasn't preventable when in fact that guy, nothing happened to that guy walking down the street, but something happened to you. Well, I'm a woman, I'm smaller, I'm this, that, and the other. Wait. Whatever happened to? There's no such thing as men and there's no such thing as genders now. Now you're throwing genders out the window when you're a victim. Now we're throwing the non-binary, all that extra stuff out the window when you're a victim.
Right. Well,
That makes no sense to me. Like you can't sit up here and claim one thing, then when something happened to you, you want to be that, you want to act like the gender that you weren't acting like before. You want to act like shit is perfect and right. No, you can't do that. You have to basically accept the fact that this is a decision that you chose, and now there's consequences to your actions. It's kind of like what I say about it's like you can't live in a world and hope and pray that shit goes right. It's like that'd be like me saying that me, Tico Tren, is going to park my Austin, not my Austin, my Morgan Super Sport with the keys in the car running, with the windows wide open in the middle of the hood, and I expect it not to be robbed. I expect it to sit there when I come out from the bar.
Let's
think about that for a second. That's literally what you're trying to present. Like I should be able to do. No, it doesn't work that way. We don't live in that type of world for it to work that way. And we never lived in a world for it to work that way.
And we never will live in a world for it to work.
And we never will live in a world where it'll work that way. If I can't park my car with the keys in the ignition while running with the windows wide open and hope and pray it don't get stolen, your ass can't walk down the street naked or safe. Because despite the fact that it's a non-animate object, the fact of the matter is it still got stolen. So if that car can be stolen, your life can be stolen.
Right.
Or your innocence can be taken. Or any of that shit, basically.
Right.
So
cookies.
Yeah, it's like you can't have it both ways. You can never have it both ways. And that's what society. Like everybody wants the ability to make decisions, but they don't want to face none of the consequences that come with those decisions. If you go into a relationship and you treat a person at a deficit, you can't be shocked when a person wants out or the person questions it. Well, no, I'm just saying because this. Well, no, I don't owe you that because I wasn't that person.
Right.
Because the world owes you nothing. As a human being, it owes you nothing as a woman. It owes you nothing as a man. It owes you nothing as a black person. It owes you nothing as a white person. It owes you nothing as a Hispanic. It owes you nothing as an Asian. It owes you nothing as an Arab. It owes you nothing as a Jewish person. It owes you nothing as anybody. You are what you make of the world around you.
It's time for me to get ready to go to bed.
Yeah, I'm about to end this pretty soon because it's about an hour and 20 minutes to this.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you basically are what you make of the world. And what you put out there is what you're going to get back. But you can't be mad when what you get back is not what you expected to get back because you expected good things, despite the fact that you put out negativity. It's kind of like what they refer to as karma.
Right. This ain't a game of shoots and ladders.
No. This isn't horseshoes or tiddlywinks.
Or hand grenades.
Yeah. It's one of those things where what you put out in the world, just know that you're going to get back in return at some point. It might not be today. It might not be tomorrow. It's kind of like the people that text and drive. It just pisses me off. Well, they text and drive, but they haven't been in an accident yet. So they keep on doing it because they believe that they're not going to be in an accident, or because they haven't been in one yet, that it's perfectly fine for them to continue to do it. But then when they get into one, the question is, did they learn their lesson? Most times, no. It's kind of like what I said in the video. I literally been in a car with women, and I literally watched them text somebody while driving.
Oh, the drinking. My favorite is the drunk drivers.
Well, it's not even just that, though. It's like the fact of the matter is, when it comes down to it, drunk drivers are bad within itself. That's a whole other realm within itself. But to watch a woman continuously make the same dumb decision over and over again in real time, but then be called mean or you hate people when you literally watch them, you're literally watching them in real time destroy their life.
And they're taking you with it.
And either they're taking you with it, or they're acting like their life is not being destroyed while everything is burning down to the ground around them.
Me, if I know a person's usually a texting driver, I'm driving.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I typically try my best not to ride with that person anymore once I find out that they're a texting driver.
Right.
And another thing when it comes to relationships, I typically don't like to be that because like people say, you should let a relationship flow naturally. How do you let a relationship flow naturally when you're trying to control how a relationship actually is going? That's not natural. If you're trying to micromanage everything about the relationship to the end of the relationship, like case in point, I was talking to a woman where she says, well, this guy needs to let a relationship flow naturally. Now, me hearing a relationship flow naturally is typically like, okay, we go out on a date. If it goes well, I could possibly lean in for a kiss. That's flowing naturally. That is flowing naturally. Everything lines up and everything aligns right, and you actually go in for the kiss. That's flowing naturally. What's not flowing naturally is if you give a person a kiss like it's mwah, 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 mwah. Like that's not flowing natural, especially if you've been dating a person for about 3 months. That's basically control. You're basically trying to control how the relationship is flowing. You're trying to control how the relationship is going and the direction is going, and how it's basically like divvying out sex or divvying out candy or divvying out stuff, basically. Because what I notice with women like that is the only time a relationship actually ever flows naturally is when they've been drinking. Then you actually get to see the relationship flow naturally. Now they're actually kissing like they actually love each other. Now they're kissing like they actually know each other and they want each other, basically. But the kissing part, like, mwah, 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 that's basically something that you give somebody that you first met several dates ago. Several dates ago. If you're still kissing like that, then apparently you don't like each other enough.
Right.
And it's one thing, and then people say, well, Tico, you don't understand. Well, I get that, like, a lot of times when husband and wives do it, they're husband and wives, and they're usually on the go when they do that shit.
Right.
It's like, mwah, 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 love you, honey, bye. That's typically how it works. 9 times out of 10, she drops you off at work, you're holding up traffic, mwah, 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 mwah. That works. That's how that works. Yes, that kiss works in that situation. However, at the end of the day, if you're still giving that type of kiss, you're trying to curate and control the relationship. You're not letting it flow naturally, but you're telling somebody else that they should let it flow naturally, when in fact you're curating and controlling the relationship, the very relationship that you're talking about should be flowing naturally. It's not flowing naturally. Because at the end of the day, like I said, if I can watch y'all two stick your tongues in each other's mouths when you're drinking, that's a natural flow relationship. Because now your barriers are down and your walls are down. You're not trying to control the relationship, and you're actually letting it flow naturally.
Right.
That's how relationships flow naturally. So when a person comes to me talk about, oh, flow naturally, and they're basically trying to curate the relationship like they're a curator at a fucking museum, then you're not letting it flow naturally.
But I'm gonna let you go, Tico.
Oh, we're about to both go. Yeah, also.
All right. This is Red Pill in the Wind. Don't ladies, you should every date should start. You should both start on an even plane. Nobody should be a higher. Nobody should be lower. Oh, everybody that did whatever they did in the past, it's in the past. Gentlemen, if you already step foot in that restaurant, that movie theater, that event, that whatever, in a deficit, walk away.
Fact.
Just not worth it. You're just going to end up hurt and scorned.
Yeah. And a lot of times, a lot of men end up like that's how a man ends up being viewed the rest of the relationship because you came in at a deficit. So she believes that she's better than you. So you should have to wait and you should have to do all this stuff. So now you don't establish yourself in a relationship as the lower person when you do shit like that. So now you're basically working on her time. If you're working on her time, it's not going to flow naturally. It's going to be curated and controlled the whole entire time. If it's flowing naturally, it typically flows naturally. And it basically goes on to be a beautiful thing. But if a person is trying to control stuff and make up excuses for why they're doing it, then they're just making up excuses. It is what it is. So never ever put yourself in a situation where you can be seen as less than in the situation. And when it comes to making decisions in relationships, be better people, make better decisions, and treat people as such. Because I pretty much grew up, and I always find it funny when women make up excuses about men. If I grow up, if you're sleeping with that person, you should know more about that person. And if you're in a relationship, being quiet in a relationship and trying to act like you're learning somebody isn't really you learning anybody. You're basically making an assumption based on how the person is. You're really not learning anything about the person. I mean, you can observe people, yes, but a relationship should be an even exchange. People say, well, it's just come up in conversation. Okay. The sad part about coming up in conversations, what I notice with a lot of relationships is people act shocked that they didn't find out this information about you. Now you're seen as a liar in a relationship because they didn't know this. Well, bitch, you didn't ask. it's like you can't be mad at me because you never asked. But the sad part about that is when you're put in that situation where you tell somebody something and they're shocked that they knew something about you, it's going to end up one of two ways. Either you lied to them, so now they're looking at you in a different light, or they're impressed or shocked, sadly. But the sad part about that is at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, relationships progress naturally if you let it progress naturally. If you're a woman trying to curate it and control somebody and tell somebody that they got to earn this shit and jump through these hoops, you're really not doing any of this shit. You're not letting it flow naturally. If you're telling somebody, well, I got to think about this, so I got to think about how I approach this, you're basically controlling the relationship. Or what you say got to make me think about this stuff. You're basically already showing who you are in a relationship by doing that. Because at the end of the day, it shows that you're controlling. And 9 times out of 10, by doing that, you're basically letting the person know that you're willing to withhold sex because you're upset. You're willing to do anything to basically try to control that person at any given time.
And that's incredibly childish.
Yes. And you're basically working at a deficit, and it's basically deprivation at that point. It's sensory overload and sensory deprivation at that point, especially when we were doing it up and down shit with a man. It's basically no different than you torturing a person in a padded room while blinking lights at the person and then rewarding the person and then doing it again, basically. You're
Still,
basically participating in sensory deprivation at that point to a man. And
and
eventually
then
a man either A, overcomes it or breaks it or he basically realizes this shit isn't worth my time.
and that's how you get Stockholm
And this is how you
syndrome.
get ghosted. And this is why you get men that don't want to talk to you no more or ghost you and shit like that, basically. This is how you get men that cheat. This is how you get men that are abusive. This is how you get men that are all this other shit, basically. Because you sat there and played a game with them mentally the whole damn time. Up and down, 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 up and down. But you want to pretend like you never played a game with the person because you like your plausible deniability. But this has been Tico Tren and Red Pill on the Win. Y'all be blessed and have a good one. I got to do more of these more often.
Don't do
And
nothing
y'all
that I do.
and don't do nothing I would do either. And y'all basically try to treat yourselves like milk, do nothing but spoil yourselves, and always become a better person, a better version of yourself, and always improve upon yourself every day, every moment, every second, every year. I don't give a damn if you're a transgender, an Apache helicopter, a black, a white, or anybody. Always improve upon yourself to make you a better person, and always make yourself a better person, and always continuously improve upon yourself first. Always continue to improve upon yourself, even when you think you're at your pinnacle, because then you'll realize that there's more to actually improve upon within yourself, because nobody's perfect. Not women, not men, not anybody.
I like trains.
So always improve upon yourself and make a better human being, and be blessed, everybody. This is Tico Tren and Beer Pill on the Win, signing out.
Rah.
Du, der nu som ikke går flash, det er slet ikke. Der har det, vi kommer, det du indtager.